Hello, romance lovers. Today's story is called To Take a Mermaid Heart. If you enjoy our videos, don't forget to like and subscribe so you never miss out on more exciting stories. At the beginning of time, the tribe Marmak lived in the sea. They were beautiful creatures with unique eyes that sparkled like precious stones. However, their ferocious nature brought endless suffering to the people who entered the sea. When Marmak, using his magic, which was not subject to humans, tried to monopolize the sea, Emperor Bavenberg was forced to declare war on Marmak. Both sides, exhausted after a long and bloody war, eventually came to a compromise. As a guarantee for the conclusion of the treaty, Marmak sent a girl to the empire. July 19th, 768, according to the imperial calendar. The central annex of the imperial palace. The maids are picking flowers. One of them asks if they are still making wreaths of pansies at this time of year. The other one answers that who knows. The last time they left the extension was more than 10 years ago. A girl came up to them and announced that the sun was about to set, and they needed to get ready to go inside. The imperial maid, Melina Ludovica von Hanover. The maids were delighted to see her, asking what color pansies she thought would best suit Lady Cordelia. She sighed, replying that flowers were all well and good, but if they wanted to properly prepare for tomorrow's birthday celebration, they'd better hurry up and… Before she could finish speaking, she tripped and fell into the water. Only the maids had time to scream in horror as the girl was already rushing towards them. She jumped into the water after Lady Melina. Melina opened her eyes and saw a girl in front of her. She looked very beautiful. Her long turquoise hair was floating in the water. The girl extended her hand, telling Melina to be careful, and pulled her to the surface. The maids rushed to help her get out of the water. The girl who saved her climbed out next. It was a girl from the Marmak tribe. Cordelia. She was glad she had made it in time and asked how Lady Melina was feeling. She was very ashamed of her clumsiness, so she thanked the girl dryly. The maids admired Cordelia's swimming. Every time they saw her swimming, their breath caught. The lady was like a fish in water. The girl smiled and emphasized that this was not so far from the truth. After all, she was half Marmak. Born from the union of her human father and a Marmak mother, she is the pledge of peace that was sent to the empire on the condition of ending the long war between the two races. In other words, her very existence is a symbol of peace. One of the maids reflected on how strange it was to see a mixed-race person. She had never even thought that Marmaks existed until she met Lady Cordelia. Melina cried out for everyone to remember their manners when speaking to Lady Cordelia, and the maid immediately rushed to ask for forgiveness. Cordelia thought that everything was fine, because she knew that there was no evil intent in the maid's words. Melina didn't like the girl's carelessness. Wringing out the hem of her dress, she replied that after they had spent so much time together, all these formalities were inappropriate between them. Since she doesn't remember anything before she left the sea, they all became like family to her. She really enjoyed this relaxed atmosphere. The girl, smiling contentedly, said that she knew Melina felt the same. The maid sheepishly agreed, and the young maids joyfully embraced Lady Cordelia. Cordelia thought it was strange that she had almost no memories of her life before she came here. She looked at her ring. Just one. Marmak woman speaks to little Cordelia. She is very sorry that the girl will have to bear such a heavy burden at such a young age. She warned her. Cordelia should be wary of humans. Greed is in their nature. If they ever tried to harm her, she should take the gem, and the girl only remembered someone giving her a ring, along with some kind of warning. But it was so long ago, so all the details are hazy. She wondered who the mermaid was. Night. The maids are looking after the lady. One of them, combing her hair, says that tomorrow is Cordelia's first day as an adult girl. The second asks what kind of cake she would like. A special day like tomorrow certainly deserves a celebration. The maids were genuinely happy for the girl. Cornelia modestly replied that tomorrow she would be 18 and there was no need for a celebration. The girls said it was nonsense. There was no better day for celebration and fun than coming of age. It seemed to them that only yesterday she was a tiny girl. She had grown up in the blink of an eye. The maid asked if the girl had decided on the gift that His Majesty would ask for. Cordelia replied that she had not thought about it yet. She had already received so much from him. His Majesty even built her this annex in the center of the imperial palace, all so that she could live free from human eyes, despite the fact that she was only a prisoner. She always thought it was a bit shameless of her to ask for anything else. Melina came in, saying it was getting pretty late. The maids thought it important to let Lady Cornelia have a good rest. Smiling sweetly, they said goodbye, wishing the lady a pleasant rest. When the girl first stepped onto the shore, everything seemed frightening and incomprehensible. Despite her fears, her escorts were very kind to her. Thanks to them, she quickly adapted to her new surroundings. Before she knew it, nearly 10 years had passed. Cordelia would do everything in her power to fulfill her role. With these thoughts, she fell fast asleep. The noise outside the window woke the girl. She went to look, hoping for a breeze. Touching the curtain, the window suddenly opened. A boy with flowers was standing in the window, who joyfully said that since her birthday was coming soon, he had come to congratulate her first. Emperor of the Babenberg Empire, Tobias Julius von Babenberg. The girl was excited by the arrival of His Highness, and in such an unusual way that the maids could notice him. The emperor reassured her by saying that everyone knew he cared for her as if she were his own daughter. If it was a mistake to congratulate his child on her birthday, then so be it. Cordelia was a little embarrassed. She could not express how happy she was to receive the care and affection of His Highness. The emperor said that sadness filled his heart as he held her in his arms. How lonely it must have been for her to live in that outhouse. Still, it can't be helped after all, it's for her own safety. His Majesty is truly a kind man. However, due to excessive disturbance, he strictly restricts access to the central extension so that no one can freely enter or exit. Neither the girl nor the maids were ever given permission to leave her territory. The girl said that His Majesty need not worry. As long as there are those who harbor hatred towards Marmak's legacy, she fully understands that His Majesty has no choice but to protect her from harm. The Emperor stroked the girl's head and asked if there was anything she wanted for her birthday. What he gave her was enough. The boy knew that Cordelia's answer would be like that, so he took the liberty of choosing her a gift in advance himself. He hoped that she would like it. The Emperor came to the table and opened the box. In it was a beautifully crafted dagger, decorated with many stones. He took it in his hands and said that this dagger was made especially for her. The blade is sharp enough to easily pierce the skin of any animal. The girl was very happy with such an unusual gift. The boy was glad that she liked it. The clock hand was approaching midnight. He said that if only she knew how long he had waited for this moment. Having plunged the dagger into Cordelia's heart, he congratulated her on her birthday. The boy cut out the girl's heart and held it up, rejoicing like a madman. Cornelia did not understand why His Highness did this to her. She lay on the floor, bleeding, and remembered how, when she was little, she played with His Highness. What an endlessly kind smile he had. She was in great pain. A mermaid floated into her memory and told her that she should not trust people. Greed is inherent in them by nature. If they ever try to harm her, she must take the gem on this ring and break it. She raised her hand and looked at the ring, praying that she had to break it before she passed out. And the stone cracked. Cornelia opens her eyes, screaming in her bed, unharmed. She looks at her ring with the damaged stone. Melina flies into the room. She excitedly asks what happened. The girl jumps up and grabs her by the shoulders, asking if she is dead, since she was stabbed just a minute ago. Melina reassures the girl, saying that it looks like the lady had a nightmare. It must be terrible to experience something like that on the morning of her birthday. The girl is confused. She incoherently repeats, nightmare, birthday. And Melina says that today is her 16th birthday. She couldn't believe it and asked if it was the year 768. To which the maid replied that the year 768 would only come in 2 years. Cordelia jumps up and runs towards the birthday cake. She remembers telling her maid that a chocolate cake would be a wonderful gift for her 16th birthday. Is that possible? To which the girl replied that of course it was possible. She would definitely write happy birthday on top in big letters. She flies into the room where the maids greet her with a cake and flowers. The girl looks at the cake. It is chocolate and has the words, Happy Birthday, written in big letters. They happily congratulate her. Inner garden of the Imperial Palace. A man heals a boy's bruised knee. Prince of the Babenberg Empire, Noah Julius von Babenberg. After a short time, he announces that the treatment is complete. She will not get sick anymore. The people standing nearby praise the healing magic abilities of the Imperial family. The man scolds the boy, saying that he has no idea how precious this power is and how dare he cause inconvenience to His Highness. He asked the prince not to be too strict with the boy. The prince smiled and said that there was no illness that did not require healing. Healing magic was a gift from heaven that should be used for the common good. He is glad that he was able to heal this child. People standing nearby said that he had no one to blame but himself. He tried to climb the wall to look inside the bird cage. The boy blushed and said that everyone was saying that a mermaid princess lived there. The man denied it, saying that it was just a stupid rumor. He understands that His Majesty the Emperor wants to protect the prisoner from danger, but all he does is hide her. No one in the imperial palace has ever seen this girl. The boy turned to His Highness and asked if he had ever seen a mermaid princess. He hesitated. He could not say that he had. The prince jumped up, remembering that he was going somewhere, and he rushed away. The maids looked after Cordelia. She looked at the ring, and still could not believe that it returned her to the past. But she knew that was the best explanation. After all, she had broken the jewel after being stabbed by the emperor. The maids noticed that the girl was pale. They were worried about her well-being. She replied that everything was fine. And suddenly she remembered that there was one more thing she had to check. The girl ran into the garden. If she really had gone back in time 2 years ago, he would soon be there. When she arrived in the garden, she found the prince lying on the ground, trying to climb through the fence of the outbuilding. Seeing him, she screamed, calling His Highness. The prince was happy to see the girl. He was embarrassed by the situation, but asked her to help him get through. Past the maids discussed the prince, his strange interest in stuffed animals and ribbons. They felt sorry for him, since he was next in line to the throne. The boy heard everything. He didn't understand why they were talking about him like there was something wrong with him. He thought what was wrong with him liking a teddy bear, and he didn't want to hurt anyone. Holding a pink bundle of fabric, he happily explained that it was his favorite floral pattern. He asked her to make him a new dress suit out of it. The girls hesitated, convincing the prince that flowers were usually worn by ladies. After all, he was the successor to the emperor himself, and he should wear a strict red satin suit. The prince protested sheepishly. The maid offered to sew him a scarf from this filigree. Another maid, supporting her idea, offered to take measurements from His Highness. Cordelia, crawling through the same fence. He wanted at least one person in the world to understand him. He dreamed of having a friend who would accept him as he was. The prince thanked the girl for helping him. If it weren't for her, he would have been stuck here all day. Melina scolded the prince, stressing that His Majesty would be disappointed if he discovered his secret forays into the palace. But as she sees it, this does not stop him. Cordelia's birthday. He baked cookies and was ready to give them to the maids if in exchange they promised to keep his foray here a secret. Having seen his wonderful cookies, they simply could not refuse. They were fascinated by his cooking skills. His baking was the best fare. Last time he brought a cake, it was amazing. Cordelia watched the proceedings with tension. Her 16th birthday went exactly as she remembered it. The prince handed the girl a package. He wanted to give her a handkerchief for her birthday, which he had embroidered himself. The prince blushed. Cordelia beamed, thanking him for such a valuable gift. She wanted to know how he and His Majesty had been getting on all this time. Unfortunately, she couldn't know what was going on outside the palace. The prince looked away. He didn't know if he should talk about it. The prince asked him to forgive him for bringing them bad news on such a day. He said that the war with the mermaids had started again. The girls were shocked. Everything was exactly as Cordelia remembered. Around the summer of 766, war broke out again. The second war was caused by the reckless intrusion of mermaids into human territory. The prince said that the mermaids were the first to break the treaty, attacking a coastal village near the islands. Many fell under their onslaught, and they spared neither the elderly nor the children. He did not understand what innocent people had done wrong, how they dared to do such a thing. He hesitated and began to ask Cordelia for forgiveness. He did not want to speak ill of her people. The girl said that everything was fine because she remembered little about her people. The only thing that matters and that she feels affection for are the people with whom she spent her childhood here. The guard's cry was heard greeting His Imperial Majesty. The girls were dumbfounded. Cornelia began to quickly hide the prince. The emperor had arrived. The girls bowed, greeting His Majesty, saying, "May his glory be eternal in the empire." He thanked them and asked if everything was okay. He heard that it was Cordelia's birthday today, so he came to congratulate her. The emperor smiled slavishly, saying that he hoped that she would become a beautiful young lady. That would be enough to fill his heart with happiness. All these words dulled the girl's sense of justice. The fact that war had come meant that the truce with the mermaid people was over. It was surprising that he had decided to leave her in the palace. He asked her what she would like as a gift. The girl replied that she was pleased with everything the emperor had given her. He stroked her head, and Cordelia shuddered at the memory. She gasped, and suddenly remembered one thing. Cordelia asked His Majesty if he would allow it. She really wanted to go outside. Outside this mansion. He laughed, reminding her that it was very dangerous for her to be outside. The girl panicked. She had been here for so long that she didn't think she could sit locked up for another year. He took her hands, saying that she was still too young, but when she was old enough, then he would let her out. She remembered his words, how he had waited for this moment for a long time. When she grew up, His Majesty stabbed her with a knife. She fell to the floor and cried, screaming how tired she was. She would rather die than go mad from not knowing the outside world. Cordelia knew there was only one way to convince him. If it worked, she could change her future. There was no choice now but to test it and take the risk. She looked up at him. His face was flushed with anger. The girl was horrified. He sighed and said plaintively that it seemed like this had been making her suffer for a long time. He was so sorry that he hadn't been more considerate of her feelings all this time. But he asks to believe him. At the moment, he cannot allow this. Not now. He knelt down in front of the girl, saying that they are currently at war with the mermaid people. There are people outside these walls who want the girl dead. He wouldn't be able to forgive himself if something happened to her. Cornelia hesitated and asked him to forgive her for her irritability, because she didn't know what was going on behind the walls. He took her hand and thanked her for understanding. He promised that he would put an end to this war. Once it was over, he would show her everything. Until then, she must stay here and show a little patience. The Emperor was very kind to the lady. The maids approached the bushes, notifying His Highness that he could come out. His Majesty had just left the palace premises. He sighed and crawled out of the foliage, looking sadly at Cordelia. The girls were excitedly discussing the news of the war. Another maid came up to them and began to cheer them up by telling them a story. The imperial family grew stronger from generation to generation. Even since ancient times, the Bavenberg Empire conquered continents as if it were the will of heaven itself. This is a well-known story. Soon after the first emperor took the throne, he fell ill with an incurable disease for a reason unknown to everyone. Many doctors gave him all kinds of medicines, but none of them achieved success. So the emperor simply resigned himself to his fate and waited, but later heard the voice of the heavenly ruler. To you and all your descendants, I grant the power that will lead you to a better future. And then a real miracle happened. The first emperor somehow miraculously recovered, as if he had never been ill. Moreover, he himself mastered the magic of healing, although people were not born with magical abilities. Therefore, people considered him not a man, but a real deity. And after that, the power granted to the imperial family, as well as authority, was passed on from generation to generation. The maid added that, in addition, the current emperor controls his power so skillfully that he has surpassed all his predecessors. He is filled with magic and uses it in such a way that his appearance is that of a little boy, although in fact he is already in his 50s. She continued, saying that in any case, as long as the empire was blessed by heaven, the war would be over in the blink of an eye. They could breathe easy and entrust their lives completely to the emperor. Cordelia stood perfectly still, thinking about what had just happened. Even though it was short-lived, the emperor had momentarily lost his composure. She wondered how long he had been pretending. Suddenly, the most terrible thought floated into her head. What if everyone around her knew everything from the very beginning? The prince touched her shoulder, and she shuddered. He asked plaintively if she had been pretending to be okay. No one had thought she was so eager to leave this place. He promised to try to talk to his father and persuade him to change his mind. Melina joined in, saying that she would also ask His Majesty about this. She took Cordelia's hands and asked for forgiveness for not paying attention to her suffering, although she was closest to her. The maids tearfully pitied the girl. Cordelia looked at the prince and remembered him as a little boy. They are sitting on the grass near the fence. The girl is delighted with the boy's beautiful handkerchief. The boy asked sheepishly, "Isn't it strange for him, since boys aren't supposed to wear things like that?" The girl smiled brightly, not seeing anything strange about it. She said it didn't matter who he was, as long as he liked her. The boy was happy to hear the words of understanding he had been hoping for. The prince jumped up, shook himself, and said he was pleased to meet Milady. Extending his hand, he asked if she would be his friend. Cordelia tried to hold her head up high and be strong, but in reality, she was lonely and afraid of her new home. But when His Highness asked her to be his friend, she was very happy. Whenever he had the chance, he would come to her palace. As befits children, they quickly became close. His Highness was a wonderful boy with a big heart. Perhaps that is why he often cried from worry for others. And he smiled just as often. He is Cordelia's first precious friend, but not the only one. There are people she considered family. She didn't want to suspect them in advance, but she had to. She tried to talk them out of it, saying she didn't want to make them worry about it. She acted like a child and asked for something she shouldn't have. The prince said she shouldn't pretend everything was okay. They could convince her father before it was too late. The girl thanked him but assured him everything was fine. His Majesty will let her go when the war is over. Melina became agitated. Cordelia, taking her hands, said that she would just have to be a little patient. Until then, she would just enjoy being here with everyone. She was sure that the right day would come soon. She thanked them for their concern and smiled happily. Cordelia thought that if she had already decided not to doubt any of them, she must believe them. There was some secret connected with her coming of age that His Majesty was hiding. She must know the truth. But it's easier said than done. She's at a disadvantage. For a start, she can't set foot outside the palace. In her current situation, it was difficult to accomplish everything she wanted. She sighed and considered the order of past events in her memory. She shook her head furiously, scolding herself for not being able to remember anything useful, even though she had returned to the past. Noah is the only source of news. The maids were whispering behind Cordelia's back, saying that the mistress was a little strange today. Melina asked why they weren't doing anything. They pointed at Cordelia. The girl recalled the day of her coming of age, looking for a clue there. But she had lost so much blood then, her head was in a fog. Because of this, she could not remember any useful information. She couldn't just sit and waste her precious time. Melina came up to her and awkwardly asked if there was anything bothering her. The girl looked away, pretending it was nothing important. Melina placed the tea utensils in front of her, and Cordelia, forcing a smile, thanked her for the tea. Melina asked her to forgive her for asking, but was it the war that the lady was worried about? Cornelia thought that from the outside it might look exactly like that. And even better, if she told anyone that the Emperor was trying to kill her, she would be accused of insulting the Emperor. It would be difficult to explain that she had gone back in time. She decided to pretend to be worried about the war. It would look natural. The girl asked shyly, was it really that obvious? She knows she won't change the outcome of this war, but she still worries. She just can't help but worry about it. But the worst part is that she can't find out what's really going on. Melina suggested contacting her uncle. He serves in the Imperial Navy and might be able to give her some general idea of what was going on. Cordelia replied that if she could do that for her, that would be fine. Taking the cup in her hand, Melina noticed with horror that its stone had cracked. The girl was worried, assuming that it had broken when she fell. The maid was sorry because it was the only thing Cordelia had left from the sea. But she insisted that everything was fine. Cordelia opened the sugar bowl, but it was almost empty. She asked for a refill, and the maid immediately rushed off to fetch it. Father and little Melina are standing in a meadow. Holding a sword in his hands, he says that it is the duty of every woman to give birth to a son to continue the family line. Does she not think that this opinion is outdated? She too can lead their family and fulfill her dreams. If she truly wants to become a knight, he will do everything in his power to support her. He hands her a sword and strokes her head. He wanted her to be free and live the way she wants. It was pouring rain. People gathered at the church to honor the memory of the deceased Count of Hanover. Standing at his grave, they gossiped about him. They said how sorry they were for him, but maybe it was better than him becoming a member of the House of Representatives. He was talking nonsense about leaving his title to his daughter, letting the girl be the head of the family. The other aristocrats will finally be free of fear and will be able to breathe easy. Now a man will be at the head of the family. The children of Mr. Hanover heard all this. The brother hid behind his sister, shaking with fear. She turned to him and assured him that there was nothing to worry about. He would succeed. Bill denied it because he was not strong and not as smart as she was. Melina put her hands on his shoulders and told him very seriously that he shouldn't say such things. Now he will be the head of the house. He needs to be strong and brave. The girl thought that she had to hold on. Although it was true that their father wanted her to fulfill her dreams, there were things that she had to do as the eldest daughter of the Hanover family. Sitting on the grass in the garden, a sad Melina told Noah how things were going for her. The elders of the clan wanted to force the girl to become a court maid. He was very furious about this. She would probably find a good match if she was at the palace. She suspected that the elders wanted to marry her off to strengthen the family line. The prince asked if she would come back for fencing lessons. The girl said that it was only thanks to her father that she could learn to wield a sword. But when he left, she clutched the sword and hesitated. The elders think it is indecent for a woman to hold a sword in her hands. Noah was very upset. Even their instructors said she was the best. And the boy added that if she became a maid, they would not be able to play often. Melina looked up at him and smiled, asking if he knew what the building in the center of the imperial court was. Noah answered hesitantly that it seemed like a captive mermaid lived there. And the girl said that it was true. Now he knew where she would work. The boy hesitated, then joyfully exclaimed that he would be able to visit her and he would do everything to get there. Melina laughed. She confidently said that he would be caught and thrown out. The maids take the groceries. Melina checks the checklist. She yawns as she lists the items. The maid next to her asks if she is okay. Melina suddenly covered her mouth and blushed, ashamed of her manners. She said that she had not slept well and needed to get some sleep. Cordelia was racing towards them at full speed. She had forgotten that they had received supplies today and offered to help organize everything. Shvitka reassured the girl, saying that they could handle it together. Cordelia hesitated. She was alone and doing nothing. Ignoring the maid's words, she sat down by the sacks, looking at them, asking if all this needed to be taken down to the basement. Melina panicked. They couldn't let her do the dirty work. The girl was already touching the bag. And Melina said that she never gives up and insists on her own, although they can handle it themselves. Cordelia replied that she felt ashamed that she was the only one doing nothing while everyone else was working hard. It wasn't fair. After all, it was her home and she lived in it. As long as she was part of the family, she wanted to help. Seeing the lady's bright smile, little Cordelia floated into Melina's memory. She happily extends her hand to her and offers to be friends. She called out to Mrs. Cordelia, who was carrying a sack to the basement, saying that she had not changed since their first meeting. Not at all. The girl blushed at her words. She asked Cordelia to promise that this was the only bag she would carry. Melina's feet. Shvitka noticed something flashing and reached for it. Melina bent down in a flash and grabbed the bead before Shvitka, which scared her very much. She began to ask her for forgiveness. Cordelia found her reaction extremely unusual. Night. The maids escorted the mistress to her chambers, and after exchanging farewell wishes for a good night's sleep, they left. The girl did not feel very well. Everything hurt from carrying heavy loads. Her legs barely carried her to the bed. But she noticed a bright glow. Turning around, Cornelia saw a full moon. It seemed unusually beautiful to her, and the girl immediately stuck to the window. It was light outside, so she noticed His Highness in the cage's domain. This worried her, so to find out if something had happened, she quietly went down. Going out into the courtyard, Cornelia called for His Highness, but discovered that no one was there. Past little Melina is looking for Cornelia in the yard. The girl was playing with Noah. She began to introduce her new friend to her. Melina ran up to them and hit the boy on the head. She scolded him, because she had asked him not to get caught. Noah hinted to her that she was being rude and reminded her that he was still a prince. Cordelia did not understand anything at all about what was happening. A moment later, Melina apologizes for the disturbance. She shouldn't have reacted that way. Melina with interest why she hadn't told her that she could handle a sword. She would have liked to see it. Melina blushed, saying that there was nothing impressive about it. Noah spoke enthusiastically about Melina's amazing skills. Their teacher always said she could do the 10 things he just showed her the first time. She's magical with a sword. Her blade moves so fast you can't even see it. Melina laughed sheepishly. She said that His Highness was bad at everything except brute force. He always got excited before sparring began. Noah blushed at her story. Cordelia laughed, saying that they must be very close. His Highness had come all this way to see Melina. The girl took her hands and offered friendship. All three of them could be friends. Melina recoiled, thanking for the offer. She emphasized that it would not be reasonable. The guys were very upset by her answer. She tried to explain that it wasn't because she was uncomfortable. She knew they didn't remember their past, but the fact that they were living in the palace as a sign of reconciliation meant they had a high status. Melina thought that she was just a maid assigned to the lady. Being their friend was an honor that did not suit her status. Cordelia lay in bed, thinking how much time had passed since then. The maids entered the room, notifying that it was time to get up. The girl could hardly open her eyes. The maid, noticing her tired appearance, asked how she slept. The girl admired yesterday's moon. She looked at it until late at night. She said that she saw His Highness the previous night, and she asked if he had come here. Melina became quite nervous. She laughed and said that there were only women in this palace. He would not have come here in the middle of the night. The lady must have mistaken the tree's shadow for His Highness. Cordelia was surprised, but supposed it was possible. The day passed as usual. The girls ate, walked, talked. Night fell. Cordelia was sure that she could not mistake the shadow of the tree for His Highness. She made her way into the courtyard. Cordelia thought it was so bright that you could probably tell the difference between a shadow and a person. On top of that, there was something odd about the way Melina spoke, as if she was trying to hide something. Sitting around the corner, she saw His Highness crawling under the fence. Melina rushed to help him up. Cordelia was shocked and glad she came to see it. Melina was nagging Noah about how he was probably seen last night, even though she had asked him not to wait in a visible place so that this wouldn't happen. The girl warned him that he should be careful, because Cordelia was very smart. He agreed with her words. Cordelia did not understand what they were hiding from her. Her thoughts were confused. They were heading to the greenhouse at such a late hour. Cornelia ran after them. She thought that this might not have been happening just for the last 2 years. Maybe they had been fooling her all this time. What if they were in league with the Emperor? She wanted to believe that they weren't. If they had truly betrayed her, what could she do now? She was confused. Noah and Melina sat down at the table. Cordelia watched them through the glass of the greenhouse, but she could hardly see what was happening. The guy was showing and explaining something to Melina. She didn't understand and asked him to explain it more clearly. If he decided to teach her, then let him teach her at least something. Her patience was running out. Their conversation turned into a quarrel. Cornelia sat down on the floor, completely unaware of what was happening. Meanwhile, a frog was sneaking up on her. It touched her hand, and the girl screamed. Noah and Melina rushed to her aid. They were surprised by her presence. The girl awkwardly replied that she had gone out for a walk. Putting on an innocent face, she asked what they were doing there. They looked at each other awkwardly. They led her into the greenhouse and showed her a pearl bracelet. Melina was very embarrassed. The prince explained that she had done most of it herself. He had only told her what to do. Cordelia admired their progress and what a wonderful teacher he was. She asked why they kept it a secret, what they were going to do with it. Melina looked away, saying that the lady's birthday had already passed, but it was supposed to be a surprise. Cordelia felt ashamed that she had thought so badly of them. The maid begged her forgiveness. She had wanted it to be a surprise, but the lady had revealed them before they had finished. On top of that, she gave Noah a lot of trouble because she couldn't make the bracelet pretty enough. Cordelia screamed that it was all her fault. Noah tried to ease the tense atmosphere by saying that it didn't matter now. Melina was sometimes too hard on herself. She shouldn't belittle herself for trying. Noah was right. Cordelia doesn't care how she did it. She's very grateful. After all, Melina prepared a gift especially for her. What could be more important? Melina remembered their childhood. Cordelia demands that Melina let them be friends. The girl was watering the flowers, lifting the watering can. She asked how often she asked her about this. Cordelia thought for a long time and decided that she did not want to back down. Melina made an attempt to say something, but then the lady, crossing her arms over her chest, grumbled that they could not be friends because she was an important person. If the only reason is that she is important. Melina looked away, asking what the other servants would think if they were too close. The girl replied that what was important was what she wanted. Melina suddenly remembered asking her father what would happen if she mastered the art of fencing like Noah. As far as she remembered, it was forbidden. People don't like to see a lady waving a sword. The father hesitated, stroking the little girl's head. He said that nothing was stopping them. What she wanted was more important than what others thought. Cordelia brought her back to reality with her declaration of love. She said that she loved her kindness and sincerity. And she tried again to offer friendship. Melina blushed and turned away. Hiding her embarrassment, she agreed on the condition that no one would know about it. These memories made her feel happy. She thanked Lady Cordelia. The girl was indignant, asking to use an informal style of communication when no one was around. Melina remembered the letter she had planned to give to the lady tomorrow, but since the circumstances were such, she handed it over now. Cordelia didn't understand what kind of letter it was. The maid explained that her uncle had sent her a reply to her letter. He had briefly told her what was happening in the war. The lady hoped that she would learn something useful. The letter said that the uncle was glad to receive Melina's unexpected letter, and he hoped that she was well. There is no other way to describe this place than a living hell. He is under orders not to divulge any information, but he did say one thing. The situation is much worse than before the truce. The Marmaks are completely different from humans and cause a lot of trouble. In addition to using their magical powers, they are difficult to kill or injure, and their endurance is amazing. Their only weaknesses are iron and fire. So soldiers try to use only these, but due to their incredible regeneration, it is difficult for them to go on the offensive. Regardless, the uncle vowed to do everything possible for the good of the empire and his niece's future. He asked for prayers for their victory. Noah broke the silence by saying that things were worse than they had expected. Melina wondered if the Marmaks couldn't stand fire and iron. So could Cordelia. The girl had touched iron before, but it hadn't caused her any harm. Noah assumed that the other effect was due to Cornelia being of mixed blood. She was, after all, half human. Melina added that maybe that's why she can't use her magic. Then that means Cordelia is more like a human. Cordelia thought, in the water, she looks like Marmak. The fact that she can breathe underwater is proof that she is definitely not human. She was bothered by a part of the letter. She picked it up and pointed at her. Their endurance is amazing. What could that mean? Noah said that he once overheard his father talking to the commander. According to the commander, the mermaid's body is much stronger than a human's. Usually humans die from serious head or heart injuries, but apparently this doesn't work on mermaids. Melina asked in surprise if he meant that they couldn't be killed. Noah replied that it was not quite so. But the commander said that they could move for some time even after their hearts were pierced. If that was true, it was no wonder they weren't giving in. Noah thought that was what Melina's uncle had meant when he said the Marmaks were causing them a lot of trouble. Cordelia felt sick. She was so shocked by this information that her heart ached as if it had been torn out again. Before her eyes stood the Emperor holding her heart in his hands. How happy he was to get it. And the girl fell to the floor, gasping for breath. She realized that his goal was not to kill her, but to get her heart. The girl clutched her nightgown to her chest and asked Melina if she could ask her for a favor. She wanted to ask for an audience with His Majesty and asked Melina to send a request. She asked what the lady wished to discuss with him. Cordelia replied with a determined look that there was something she would do better to discuss with him alone. 4 hours later. Melina sees Noah off, standing by the fence. She asks him to help finish the bracelet. The guy agrees, but he is interested in why exactly the bracelet, because Cordelia's ring broke. The girl looked at him with a certain feeling of disgust. She angrily shouted that she couldn't believe her ears. Was he really laughing at her? She pointed her finger at him, saying that he was the one who should give Cordelia the ring, not her. Melina asked how long he was going to cherish this one-sided love, and when he was going to tell Cordelia about his feelings. The prince blushed and covered his face with his hand. He was having trouble coming up with a suitable answer. Melina grabbed the bars and started screaming that he had been putting this off for the last few years. Did he realize how hard it was to watch? He was driving her crazy. The prince entered the shop. The owner greeted him flatteringly. They sat down in armchairs over a cup of tea. His Highness thanked them for the warm welcome, but he felt embarrassed that they had to close because of him. He remembered Melina yelling at him that he had been friends with Cordelia for years. Had it never occurred to him to make the first move? Or was he going to stand by and watch someone else take her away? He agreed, but he couldn't shake the feeling that Melina had forced him to come here. Noah remembered how, as a child, when they were playing together, Cordelia had told him that she wanted to be his friend until she died. These memories excited him. He had a goal. He did not want to remain Cordelia's friend forever. He thought that this time he would really gather up his courage and confess his feelings to her. The owner of the jewelry store emphasized that their business is the largest on the continent. They have a fairly large selection of jewelry. He was confident that they would be able to find what he was looking for. The prince thought for a moment. He said he was looking for a gemstone that would suit the young lady's taste. It had to be the right size for the ring, something unique and rare if possible. It would be great if it was a blue shade that would remind of the sea. The gentleman ordered a sample to be brought, which arrived this morning. He did not suppose that His Highness was looking for such a precious stone. Considering that he is known for his modesty, the shop owner could not imagine that he would be interested in jewelry. The prince agreed. It was his first time in such a place. He said sheepishly that he felt awkward here. The man assured him that he would get used to it. After all, he would follow in the footsteps of His Majesty the Emperor and would be the most important man in the empire. The jewel he was about to show was so rare that the cream of high society could only dream of seeing it. His Majesty had come to the right place. The prince was a little nervous. The shop owner reassured the prince. He guaranteed complete confidentiality for their customers. The shop worker returned, carrying a beautiful box in his hands. The gentleman said that this is the best example they currently have. Its quality is amazing. The precious stone that His Highness had been looking for. The man opened the box, and the prince was frozen with horror. Inside the box was a mermaid's eye, a beautiful, shiny bead the color of the sea. The prince asked again if it was really a mermaid's eye. The shopkeeper said that perhaps the prince was seeing it for the first time, so it was not surprising that His Highness was struck by its beauty. It was delivered this morning, so it was definitely the freshest. Noah couldn't believe it. He thought it was all a joke. The shopkeeper remarked that His Highness was difficult to convince. He added that the optic nerve had been removed with particular precision. It was absolutely perfect. The prince leaned over sharply, covering his face with his hands. He felt sick. He kept wondering if this man wanted to play a joke on him, but it didn't look like a joke. Finding the strength to calm down, he said that as far as he knew, the mermaid's eye was a treasure. He could not believe that he managed to see it in real life. The man confirmed, saying that the fact that it is difficult to obtain is what makes it so valuable. This is due to the fact that mermaids have a fierce nature and very rarely leave the water. Only the imperial family has the right to supply mermaid eyes. Noah was very surprised. Having learned that the prince knew nothing about this, the owner was happy to tell him everything. Their enterprise also gains eyes through the imperial family. This is a great opportunity for the prince to learn about the industry he will undoubtedly inherit. The high priest condemned this. Because of his intervention, they use illegal means of supply. Thanks to the war, the corpses of mermaids wash up on the shore, so there have been no supply problems lately. What a blessing that evil creatures are actually a goldmine for people. It's a business. This war is a real blessing. It's a sunny morning. Cordelia stands by the food supply, angry that too much has been delivered again. She picks up the bag, but it's too heavy and she almost falls. She was caught by Noah, who told her she needed to be careful. Cordelia greeted him cheerfully by name, then changed her style to a more formal one. She asked him why he had come to the annex. The prince had no specific reason. He simply wanted to see her. Cordelia noticed his upset look, even though he was trying to smile. She reached out and stroked his face, asking if something was wrong. He was surprised at first, blushed, but then he clung to her hand. Cordelia noticed what she did and abruptly took her hand away. Her heart was pounding wildly. She suggested that he tell her everything. They sat down on the railing of the bridge. He decided to keep quiet about the recent news until he was sure of its truth. It was hard for him to tell Cordelia everything, since it was directly related to the mermaids. Noah thought it was too cruel to be true. The shop owner must be using strange rumors to deceive customers. He didn't believe that his father was hiding anything from him. The prince asked the girl how she would feel if she knew something she shouldn't have known, something that was better not to know at all. She hesitated. She wanted to know the truth. Cordelia said that there was something she hadn't told anyone. She had been doubting herself a lot lately. She came here as a child. She had no memories of the past. For a prisoner, she has quite a privileged life. But the fact is, she can't afford to go outside the palace. She has no opportunity to learn anything new. She is served day and night. But is she worthy of this care? Cordelia was tormented by guilt, so she tries to be useful. She wasn't good enough at handicrafts like Noah, and she didn't have the sword skills like Melina. She felt like an old flower vase that was useless because it was empty. She doesn't know what the future holds for her. If the war ends, her only purpose as a prisoner will be gone, Noah countered. He thought she was much more than a prisoner. He blushed, adding that she had no idea how much. Cordelia smiled at him. She touched his hand, saying that she had hoped to comfort him, but in the end she had been comforted herself. She was very grateful to him. The girl looked at the sky and said that in the end she was the only one who should decide her fate. That's why, if she learned something bad, she'd rather face it, no matter how much pain it will cause her. Noah looked at her with admiration, saying that she would do the same. He didn't think he was like that. The thought flashed through his mind that this is why he loves Cordelia. Noah and his father are drinking tea in the garden. His father asks how long he is going to put it off. It is time to make a decision. This year, Noah turns 18. He is no longer a child. The man says he's not asking him to take part in the war. All he wants is for Noah to better understand combat tactics. Noah breaks out in a cold sweat. He tried to explain that giving orders was not his strong point. If he went to headquarters, he would only get in the way. His father interrupted him, saying that was why he advised him to just observe, to gain experience. Noah was only capable of killing an ant. The emperor did not expect him to participate. Noah said he understood him, but like his father said, he wasn't that experienced. If he was going to be on the front lines just because he was a prince, he was sure he would do more harm than good. Not to mention that this is a battlefield. It is not enough to simply make a plan of defense or attack. He won't be able to help, but he thinks it would be foolish of him to use his best knights for his personal protection. The emperor responded to him with the reproach that using power was a concept that had nothing to do with Noah. His father offers him a great opportunity to gain experience in combat, but his son prefers to stay here like a coward. He asks if he dares to call himself a prince after this. Noah asked his father what he thought of the war. This senseless war has been going on for over 10 years, with no end in sight. Isn't it disgusting? No one benefits from constantly destroying each other. He didn't understand why it was taking so long. Noah plucked up his courage and blurted out if there was something his father was hiding from him. The father thought for a moment and replied that only a bloodthirsty monster would enjoy war. But as long as the mermaids continued to attack their lands and plunder their people, it was his duty as an emperor to protect his subjects. Even if his only goal was to care for the innocent, he could not give up on war. Noah was sure that his father was not capable of planning something so terrible. The maid brought the cake that His Highness had asked for. The emperor, folding his arms, asked what it was. Noah had made this cake for their tea party. The prince was talking about the cake when suddenly his father slammed his fist on the table, angrily saying that he was tired of repeating this to him, that it was not proper for a man to be in the kitchen. He waved his hand and ordered the maid to take it away. Tobias thought that everyone was getting on his nerves today. Cordelia had always been nice and obedient. Why did she suddenly ask for a meeting? It would be better for her not to bother him again. Cordelia was in her room, thinking about her magical abilities. Standing at the table, pointing her palm at the book lying on it, she loudly commanded the book to rise into the air and flutter like a butterfly. At that moment, Melina walked in, seeing what was happening. She froze, and then backed away, closing the door behind her. Cordelia begged her to stay, saying that it was not what she thought. Cordelia explained everything to her. Melina suggested that it was too early to worry that she didn't have magic powers, but the girl thought she could figure out how it worked. She supposed that maybe if she cast a bunch of spells, something like her changing underwater would happen. And she screamed, commanding the rain to fall and the fire to light. She asked if that was how it was supposed to be. Melina assumed that magic worked a little differently. For example, Noah didn't cast spells when he used his powers. Cordelia agreed and decided to ask for help when they met. Melina doubted that it would help and suggested asking His Majesty, since he would soon arrive at the castle. She agreed. Cordelia seemed ready to meet him, but apparently the fear deep inside was still there. Melina said they were lucky the Emperor had some free time in his schedule. Otherwise, it would have been very difficult to get an audience anytime soon. Suddenly, there were shouts. Someone had thrown too much wood on the fire. The workers were arguing. Melina needed to check what was going on in the kitchen. She said goodbye and asked Cordelia to get ready for the meeting. The girl was worried. She clenched her fists and convinced herself to remain calm. Today, she would talk about everything with the Emperor. The guards announced the arrival of the Emperor. He ordered them to wait outside. Cordelia met him in the house, greeting him warmly and telling him how long she had been waiting for their meeting. He was quite surprised when he heard about her request in the audience. After all, she asked for it for the first time. Therefore, the Emperor was ready to listen to her. The girl thought that she had managed to arrange this meeting without any problems. But now that she was face to face with him, it seemed to her that her heart was about to jump out. The Emperor may look like a child, but beneath that innocent exterior lurks a dangerous snake. How easy it had been for him to deceive her for the past 10 years. She couldn't match his years of experience. Even standing in front of him, she couldn't figure out what he was hiding behind his smile. That's why he was worth fearing. At last, Cordelia was able to say that she had had much time to think, but she could not restrain her curiosity, so she asked for a meeting with His Majesty. The emperor asked her what she was curious about. Cordelia thought he was terrible. She was equally angry and scared. He must have found it funny to watch her swallow the lies like a fool. The girl said that no matter how much she thought about it, she thought she was old enough to step outside the palace. The emperor reminded her of the danger and the people's hatred of the mermaids because of the war. Cordelia interrupted His Highness, thanking him for his concern. However, she thought it seemed a little strange. Since the truce was broken, she no longer had a reason to stay. Besides, unless she decides to go into the water, no one will be able to guess that she is Marmak. The people in the palace treat her as if she is part of their family, despite the fact that they know who she is. She found it hard to believe that they hated her just because she was different from them. The emperor sighed, saying that she was mistaken. How could she believe that they were sincere towards her? Even before they were assigned to be her servants, these children were trained. It is only because of their upbringing that she can live in comfort despite being a captive. Cordelia hesitated, because no one had mentioned anything like that. The emperor explained that it was because he had given the order. It would do no good if she found out about it. Her servants are forbidden to express any hostility or hatred towards her. The emperor spoke and began to walk slowly towards Cordelia, so he hoped that she didn't hate them either. Unfortunately, she would never know. Perhaps there were some among them who despised her madly. The emperor was curious about what she was going to do when she left this place. Here she had everything she could wish for. He suggested imagining that she had gone outside. He asked how she would live, if she had a specific plan. Coming up close to her, he said, "Did she really think that all her problems would be solved if she left the palace?" It was all nothing. Just empty dreams. Does she know how to use money? Read maps? He asked if she knew how to do that. What does she hope to achieve if she doesn't have even the basic knowledge? Cordelia stepped back from him and cried out that His Majesty's words were too harsh. He cried back, ordering him to tell her what she was really good at. He asked her, for someone who could do nothing but be a prisoner, if she thought she was being too brazen. Cordelia was horrified by his words. His Majesty continued, walking towards Cordelia again. Without his care and support, she would not have lasted a day. Why did she not want to accept the fact that everything was being done for her own good? Why was she acting so stupid when she knew she couldn't take care of herself? The emperor stepped too close and Cordelia stepped back, knocking over the vase stand and shattering it. She fell right in front of the emperor and looked at him in horror. He said how ungrateful it was of her. She was blessed, but she couldn't even understand that. His usual sweet, smiling expression changed into an angry grin. Cordelia had no answer to him. He was right. She was completely useless. Cordelia accidentally touched one of the vase fragments. She took it in her hand, saying that she did not think that His Majesty did not suspect anything. She might not know anything about the outside world, but there was one thing she knew for sure. And Cordelia held the shard to her chest. The emperor asked her what she had just said with horror on his face. Cordelia replied that her heart was what His Majesty so desired. She chuckled, saying how lucky it was that the one thing she knew was the most important truth of all. Tobias didn't understand how this was possible. How did she know about it? She hadn't shown any signs of knowing before, and there was no one who could tell her. He suggested that perhaps she had known all along. Cordelia asked His Majesty if they could skip the small talk and get straight to the point. If he was willing to negotiate, she had something to offer him. She would risk what he wanted most. Cordelia pressed the shard near her heart, and blood began to flow down her hands. She said that one sudden movement and she would kill herself. The emperor thought she was not bluffing. He always thought she was just a puppy. But she turned out to be a real lioness. He said he didn't know where she heard these strange rumors, but it seemed there was a misunderstanding. He asked her to put the shard down for a while. He apologized for the rudeness she had heard a moment ago. It flashed through his mind that she was still a 16-year-old girl. It would be easy to persuade her. Cordelia answered him without removing the shard from her chest that she would forgive His Majesty only when he let her out of here. He clenched his fists, insisting that she had nowhere to go. She agreed. Gritting his teeth, he offered to take her to the local attractions and issue a special permit. Cordelia laughed, thinking that His Majesty must be joking. She asked if he would really let her go so far away to visit the rides. He shouted what she wanted then. Cordelia's memory. One evening, she is sitting in the room with the maids. She is drinking tea. The girls are doing embroidery. Shvitka says that since the war has started, people will again face hard times. Their lives would be at stake. Cordelia asked how since soldiers were going to war. Schwitka agreed and added that taxes would double, and all for the sake of the war effort. Another maid emphasized that this is their second war. They lack both resources and people. All young men and even women will be called up for war, and Cordelia gave a resolute answer to the emperor. She demanded to be sent to the front lines. She would definitely be useful there. The emperor was speechless. He thought it was some kind of absurdity. The girl said that she knew that they accept both women and men because they do not have enough people. The emperor protested. He didn't understand why the front lines of all places. Cordelia pointed out that this was the place where they would need someone as useless as her. Tobias was angry. He grabbed his head and thought, what the hell is this? And what if something happens to Cordelia? Or she gets involved with the mermaids and goes back to the sea? She promised to come back in 2 years. He chuckled and asked why she would want to come back if she was trying so hard to leave this place. Cordelia replied that she had a coming-of-age ceremony coming up, as she would be 18. If she doesn't perform the ceremony, she won't be recognized as an adult, so she has to go back. The man thought about what she had said, if she wanted to come back before she turned 80. Then she still didn't know the most important part. He couldn't miss this opportunity. He smiled, saying that he felt better when she said she would come back. In that case, he would think about her offer. Cordelia smiled happily. She was sure that his goal was to pull out her heart in 2 years. But not even in his wildest dreams did he imagine that she would survive. She said with relief and a certain sense of gratitude that His Majesty had finally understood how she felt and let the splinter fall from her hand. She had expected the Emperor to let his guard down. She was determined to fight the death he could bring her, no matter what. After the meeting, Cordelia bumped into Melina while trying to quietly return to her room. Melina examined Cordelia's wounds and did not understand how this could have happened. The girl replied that she accidentally bumped into a flower vase. Melina couldn't believe that such accidents could have damaged her arm so badly. The maid noticed a wound in her chest. Melina noted sadly that Cordelia had said that she only wanted to ask His Majesty something. She had asked if she really would not tell her what had happened. She begged her to tell, because she was worried about Cordelia. But the girl only turned away and muttered that nothing had happened. She understood why Melina was shocked. She would be shocked too if she saw her in such a state. Cordelia was confused. She didn't know what to do because she couldn't tell the truth. She wouldn't believe her if she came up with another lame excuse. She had to hurry and leave this all behind. Melina said Cordelia was acting weird. She tells her only one lie. Cordelia's excuses make her even more worried that she might be in trouble. She's just beside herself with worry. Cordelia panicked, her voice shaking. She said that she didn't mean to hide anything on purpose. She reached out to Melina, who pushed her away sharply. Melina demanded to know what really happened if Cordelia wasn't trying to hide something. She said Cordelia said they were friends. She said they were almost like family. So why did she treat Melina like she was a stranger? She asked if Cordelia realized how sad this was making her. Cordelia was surprised and very sorry, and she told him that she had broken the vase herself and used the shards to threaten His Majesty that she would kill herself. Melina panicked. The girl replied that she wanted to leave this house, but he kept her locked up, and she pretended to sacrifice her life. Holding Cordelia by the shoulders, the maid asked her to promise that she would not do such things again. The girl agreed. Melina awkwardly asked what the Emperor's answer was. Cordelia, smiling happily, replied that everything went well. Soon she would go out on the battlefield. The maids were cleaning the library, and they needed to hurry to finish cleaning the library by today. Schwitka wondered how the three of them had managed all these years. Another maid said it would soon be over, since Cordelia would soon be leaving the annex. Schwitka thought it was strange. It all happened so fast. Cordelia had been locked in here all this time. It was rather strange that she was suddenly released. Another girl, putting her hand on Schwitka's shoulder, happily said that, who cares? Because thanks to her, they will finally be able to leave this place. Although the last 8 years have been difficult, they will receive good compensation. The day after tomorrow, they would finally be free. With the money she had earned through hard work, she would pay off her debts, buy land, and build her own little house. She would finally live. One of the maids put her hand on Schwitka's shoulder and asked her to keep her dreams to herself. She understood, but they were right in the Imperial Palace. You have to keep your mouth shut if you want to survive in this place. She asked Schwitka if she remembered what happened when they first came here. Her eyes were filled with horror. She recalled a woman who had hit her legs with a pointer. leaving bloody marks. The girl added that if they did not watch their words, they would not hesitate to cut out their tongues. Better to focus on what they were doing now, not the future. She suggested going out and seeing how things had changed over the past 8 years. They will buy a lot of beautiful clothes and eat the best and most delicious food. Shvitka agreed, but she had a feeling that she would miss this place. She remembered little Cordelia and their acquaintance. Noah was sitting on the porch of the house, eating cookies and sulking at Cordelia. Melina scolded him, saying that his sour face was out of place here. He asked how she could go to an audience and not tell him about it. He is actually surprised that his father allowed this. Noah asks what Cordelia actually did to convince him. She hesitated, glancing nervously at Melina, who was non-verbally trying to hint to Cordelia not to tell Noah anything. He would definitely faint from shock. Cordelia sat down next to Noah and told him that she could say that she had affected him with her girlish tears. He did not believe that his father could be moved by tears. Noah asked why Cordelia would go to the battlefield. It was dangerous. She knew that, but she would be far from the front lines. She signed up to run errands at the field hospital. Besides, Cordelia seemed to cheer up as she said this. Melina was going with her. Noah was stunned by this news. He asked Melina if she was going to return to the aristocracy. But the girl answered in the negative. She could not leave Cordelia. She would die from worrying about her. This meant that Noah would be left here alone. He was sad. He asked Cordelia if she would miss the place later. She hesitated and replied that all the maids would be gone, so the place would be empty. Of course she would miss them. But the last time she met His Majesty, he said that they were trained before they were assigned to her. He said that even if they hated me for being half mermaid, they were forbidden to show their dislike. She was afraid that perhaps they were among those who hated her. Melina smiled at Cordelia, saying that was why she had been acting so strange with the other escorts. She said to listen to her carefully. To become an escort indeed, they had to go through this strange training, and they had to be locked in the annex with her. But basically, no one forces them to be here. It's not easy, but in return, they get enough money to last them a lifetime. They also get a guaranteed old age benefit. Everyone came here to get something, but should that mean they would risk taking the job while being forced to live with someone they hate so much? When one mistake will cost you your life. Melina turned and beamed, saying that she had received the same training. And there was nothing like that. Melina tried to cheer Cordelia up. She couldn't speak for everyone, but she really liked her. And that was true. She gave her a genuine smile. Noah shyly shouted that he liked Cordelia too. The girl laughed, thanking them and saying how much she loved them. The Emperor thought about Cordelia's words, that she had promised to return here herself after she had risked her life to leave here. What a stupid lie. However, he couldn't allow her to cause any more trouble, so he had to pretend to believe her. Tobias would have tied her hands and feet if he could, but he risked damaging her precious body. He would try to get her back when he had the chance, but for now he ordered Melina to keep an eye on her, so she wouldn't do anything stupid. Long ago, Noah asked Cordelia a question. They were playing on the grass in the outbuilding's yard, and he asked her if she was on the mermaid's side. The girl didn't understand his question. He said he knew she was half human, but she also lived in the sea with other mermaids. He just thought she loved them more. Cordelia was too young then to fully understand what Noah wanted to say. He asked her if she would go back to sea when the war was over. He looked very upset. When Cordelia heard the tremor in Noah's voice, she felt his fear pierce her heart. She told him that she would not leave, because she could not leave him here. Without thinking, she promised Noah something she wasn't sure of. But how else could she answer him? She was born from the connection of two races. She couldn't tell him who she really was, because even she didn't know the answer to that question. If only she had memories before she set foot on dry land. Little Cordelia is brought to the annex area, screaming and crying, saying that she is not a human, she is a mermaid, and she wants to go home. Cordelia wondered if there were people she loved, just like she loved Noah and Melina, waiting for her in the azure sea. Would she beg to be returned to the sea? She was tormented by uncertainty. Who was she? Why couldn't she remember anything? Who would she love if she lived alone? It was as if her feet didn't touch the ground. She had nowhere to go, and she couldn't land properly anywhere. Field hospital. A man trying to save a wounded comrade runs and shouts that the wound needs to be cleaned and a cloth brought. In such conditions, Cordelia had no time to think. She runs, carrying hot water, then brings a cloth and bandages just in case. The other girls watch her incredible speed with tension. Cordley collects dirty clothes to take to the laundry room. Her coworker praises her, saying that she makes all the work here easier. It's been a week since she came to the emergency room. It was difficult at first, but it's gotten a lot easier now that she's gotten used to it. She also realized something about herself. She was very good at working, and she was immensely happy about it. In fact, it's not difficult because the work here is quite simple. However, everyone just praises her. How wonderful it seemed to her. The girls discussed Cordelia. They liked her ambition. They heard that she lived on a farm. She came all the way here after hearing news of the war. She came with that blonde girl who is always next to her. They both look so young. But how brave they are to volunteer. Cordelia entered the laundry room carrying dirty clothes. Melina thanked her. They needed more hot water. Melina assumed more firewood. They are currently in the castle of a count named Ernest. Ernest County is the closest to the front line. In early July, the truce was broken, and the coastal village was the first to come under attack. The damage was enormous, and there were many wounded and killed. In addition, with the Second War approaching, Count Ernest opened the doors of his castle to the imperial soldiers and began to actively participate in the war. Cordelia thought they would be outside since this was the emergency room. Melina replied that there was no need since the Count had given them permission to use his castle. Melina heard that the command was in barracks near the front line. It must be hard for them. The girls were doing the laundry, and Melina noticed how well Cordelia was doing it. Cordelia was very happy that she was doing everything herself, and she was also happy that she could help others with what she was doing. She was glad that she was here. Melina warned her friend that this was no time to relax. She had to be on guard. For her, it was like being in the middle of a battlefield. She would be in danger if the people of the Empire found out who she was. Cordelia didn't believe they could kill her. Everyone here seemed so kind to her. They praised them or said they were proud of them. Melina replied that it would be like that as long as people believed their story about the village in the south. Don't underestimate people's hatred. Whatever she did, Melina asked her not to get caught. A woman came in with more linen. Military nurse Alice Meyer. She knew it was a hassle, but she would have to leave the laundry to them. She was so glad the two of them had come to their aid. There had been so much work here before. Cordelia asked how things were on the battlefield. Alice said it was just terrible. They saw people here with wounds. Their wounds were so terrible that it was difficult to help them. They were lucky they weren't crippled. Most of them could barely stand. And all because of those nasty animals. Those disgusting sea rats. Cordelia was very worried. She hesitated and asked if she meant mermaids. Apparently, she hated them very much. She gave a squeal of approval. Alice said she couldn't believe that such a crazy race dared to come to these lands. All they did was hinder them, the people, from living in peace. We must take the opportunity to exterminate them all to the last one, so that they will never be born again. Shocked, Cordelia asked if this was really necessary. Alice said. Since they were on the subject, she thought the Emperor was being too dismissive. She couldn't believe he'd let that girl live. It would have been better to take that wretch to the scaffold. And after beheading her, put her head on a pike so that everyone would realize that there was no mercy for monsters. A girl ran in and shouted that Alice should help disinfect the wound. She ran away in a hurry. Melina was silent, looking at her pitifully. Cordelia said that she would be careful. She was very upset, but she didn't show it. Melina was right. People wouldn't accept her just because she was mixed blood. Cordelia was very scared. She had been hearing bad things about mermaids for days. This anger of people was beyond reason. She was here to prevent her death in 2 years. To do this, she needed to find out the reason why the Emperor was so concerned about her heart. It was an incredible stroke of luck that the maids were talking about this on that day. Through them, she learned that the Empire was desperately seeking volunteers. She used this information to form a basic idea of what she should do. During the conversation between the maids, she realized that workers could also run into mermaids just like the military. So to meet them, you have to go to the front. If anyone can give Cordelia a clue about her heart, it's the mermaids. She was encouraging herself by shouting, and suddenly Melina came in to invite Cordelia to wash up. There was an awkward pause. In the bathroom, the girl explained that she was just trying to collect her thoughts.